Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of a series that I'm calling Two's Compliments. My name is your host, Propagating, Prop, whatever you want to call me, that is fine. In this series, we're going to be looking at the process of translating a piece of software from one language, in this case C++, to another language, in this case C#. The software that we're going to be translating is the One Lone Coder Pixel Game Engine, written by JavidX9, and he's got a number of videos on his YouTube channel about the Pixel Game Engine, extensions to it, and things like that. Before I kind of continue, I did reach out to him about using the Pixel Game Engine in this series and kind of for this purpose. He gave me his thumbs up, seal of approval to not only publish the code and make these videos, but that was which he didn't need to do. So for both of those things, a big thank you. Just to be clear, this is not endorsed or any other way supported by Javid or the One Lone Coder project. We just have the permission to use it, and the links to his content will be in the box below, as well as in the licensing on my GitHub that has my code for this project. So big thank you there. So with that, we can go ahead and kind of get started. This first episode is really just going to be an introduction to the project, laying some kind of base expectations about the tools that we're going to be using, kind of the process we're going to be using, and just talk a little bit about what this translation kind of looks like in the world of software. So first thing is, what will this tutorial not be? What will this series not be? The series will not be a tutorial in C# or C++. There's plenty of tutorials for learning how to program, especially in those languages. That's not something that we're going to be focusing on. That said, because of the process of translation, there are going to be things that are not supported in C# that are supported in C++, and vice versa. There's also going to be other ways of kind of achieving the same effects. So when we get into that type of situation, that's when we're going to dive into a little bit about the teaching side of things, why I made certain decisions, and why the code is written in the way it is. So I'm not saying there will be zero teaching or zero kind of learning opportunities at all. I mean, this whole series is meant to be a learning opportunity for both me and for the people watching this video. It's just I'm not going to be explaining what an integer is or what primitive types are, things like that. So if you're looking to learn how to code, I would caution you to look elsewhere. Second thing, what this, as you've probably guessed by now, this is going to be primarily focused on the process of translating software from one language to another. And there's kind of multiple ways that you can go about this. I like to think about it in kind of two main camps. And I kind of hate myself for using this phrasing, but you can either translate to the letter of the code or to the spirit of the code. And all that means is you can do a one-to-one kind of verbatim translation as best you can, or you can look at what the intent of a method is doing or a line of code is doing, and you can try to emulate that intent. So, if say the code that you're looking at is reading a file, you can either try to do like a one-to-one, okay, let me use the exact same kind of like file streams and the exact same data structures and everything like that. Or you can say, nope, the intent here is just to open and read a file, so I'm going to use some built-in things to open and read a file. The way that we're going to be doing this translation is going to be a combination of both of those things. So some things we are going to translate kind of one-to-one. Other things we are not going to translate one-to-one and are going to be based off of the intent of the, the soul or the intent of what was written in the Pixel Game Engine. So keep that in mind. Next thing that I wanted to talk about is kind of the tools that we'll be using. Obviously, you're going to want to be using like an IDE of some kind. In my case, I'm using the JetBrains suite, so we'll be going between Sea Lion and Writer in this case. That's just what I'm most comfortable using. There are other IDEs. You don't even need to use an IDE if you don't really want to. You can use you can use text editors or something like, that kind of blurs that line like Visual Studio Code or, Emacs, Vim, whatever you want to use. The thing that I find most useful here is that the JetBrains suite will allow me to view both the C# and C++ code side by side, as you kind of see here. And it's not going to complain a ton about the C++ code, and it's going to still give me kind of it's going to give me all of the nice color coding and things like that, which is, I find, really useful in this kind of navigation. Now, I won't be using this kind of side-by-side view for everything. I will have, Sea Lion up on another screen, and I'll try to, keep OBS going back and forth as needed. But still having this, side-by-side view is going to be super helpful for you if you're kind of coding along with me as I'm going through this. Some nice to haves would also be some kind of REPL tools like LinkPad, or I think there are some websites that you can use in the browser, just because there's going to be some things that, as we are going and trying to emulate, the code that is written in C++, we're going to need to try some things out in C# and make sure that they're working or working as intended. We might need to be doing some debugging. And the best way to do that is to kind of actually write the code and run it without, the baggage of everything that, we have written in our current project. So with that, I like doing that in kind of a separate thing. You can use your own projects. Just something that allows you to run small snippets of code and to debug them and test them is also going to be super useful. And of course, some kind of version control is just an absolute necessity. You can't really, modern software is going to require you to use version control, and it's going to help you out in the long run, especially if you find that you've kind of made mistakes, or, even just for your own, safekeeping. If you end up losing code or something like that, you've got it back up. So you're definitely going to be wanting to use version control. I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about in this introductory episode. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit short. That said, I mean, maybe one thing that I might be worth talking about is that when it comes to translating code, there are some automated tools that will attempt to do a straight translation. They're kind of like a transpiler, if you want to call it that. Those can work. The problem that I've found is that, they're pretty finicky to use, and the output isn't that great. I mean, it's kind of like if you if you've ever used like a code generator to generate this I don't even have a great example. They're really finicky to use. The code that they spit out is really not human readable, and you don't learn anything in doing that. So it's not, I did try to kind of run some of this Pixel Game Engine code through one of those pieces of software, and it was not even worth showing. So, that is an option in some cases, but I find that it's probably not a usable thing, and for most people. And I think that is really it. Oh no, I'm sorry, I forgot one more thing. So one of the big takeaways, one of the big things that is a draw to the Pixel Game Engine in a lot of ways, is that it is all contained in one header file. And you do have extensions in other header files, but essentially the Pixel Game Engine is one, fairly massive C++ header file that contains everything you need to write, some 2D or 3D games in it, which is really awesome and really powerful. And for, it makes it fairly quick and lightweight from a C++ standard. Now, as we are writing and translating this to C sharp doesn't really have the same concept of header files, where you have a definition and implementation in separate files. I mean, it does in some frameworks, and especially like in your web and desktop programming, you do see that in some cases, but not really in the same. It's not really in this exactly the same as a header file and like a CPP file, right? So we're not going to be trying to keep everything in one file. In our C sharp code, what we are going to be doing instead is trying to keep everything inside of one project. So that way, when we compile this, we have one DLL that is spit out, and it's kind of one include statement. And in my mind, that achieves the intent of the Pixel game engine. It's just now it's all in one library instead of one header file, and that's that gives me the freedom to have some organization as I like it. It gives me the freedom to rename things and stuff in a way that I like, especially as, I'm not going to be worried about kind of cross compatibility between my version of the engine and the official version. So, that's how I'm going to be bridging that gap. So with that said, that does kind of clear up, and that does kind of conclude our introductory episode for kind of what the intent of this project is, how we're going to be going about it, kind of how the translation is going to work, the tools that you need. And kind of, again, this is not going to be a tutorial series in the sense that it's not going to be teaching you how to code, but you'll hopefully still learn something about, how software is translated. So, again, big thank you to Javid and, his One Lone Coder project for allowing me to, use his code and kind of create this series from it. Please do, go check him out and check out his content. It's super useful, especially the Pixel Game Engine series on the Pixel Game Engine 2.0, which is kind of what we'll be basing all of this translation on. So thank you, and happy holidays, and hopefully you'll stick around for the rest of the series.